Penny Mishow. I know Scientology targets professionals, such as chiropractors and veterinarians, with their business in admin tech. How do these small business people, who are also Scientologists, deal with patients, customers, or even business partners who are reading your blog, watching Leah Remini's Aftermath, or who are simply exposed to what is becoming more and more common knowledge about Hubbard's cult of broken dreams? Surely they can't disconnect from all of them. What if a business partner or patient is 1 degree removed from a Facebook friend who is an open critic? What if a customer's husband watched Going Clear? It's insane to even think it's possible to exert this level of control. I have to believe if this policy were strictly enforced, everyone would be declared. All right, good question, Penny. Now, I've addressed the subject of suppressive people, which is what Scientology call people that they think are antisocial personalities or psychopaths or things like that. And I've talked about this condition called PTSness, or PTS, being a potential trouble source. If you as a Scientologist get connected up with somebody who they think is antagonistic to or against Scientology, then they'll call that person a suppressive person, and they'll, equate that person to somebody who is at the same level as a serial killer or something like that, right? I mean, it's pretty crazy black and white thinking that goes on. But that's really kind of, rather than talking about all that again, here's what I'm going to say on this. Scientologists and members of any destructive cult, actually, live in a bubble world. The information that goes into that bubble is very controlled. It's very, dictatorial level of information control. In fact, Steve Hassan even talks about this in his book on combating cult mind control, where he talks about this BITE model, and one of those things is information control, right, as the I in BITE. It's required that in order to be in a destructive cult, in order to have a destructive cult, that this be one of the characteristics of it, because if the full truth about the cult leader and the cult itself were known to its members, then most of them would leave. And the cult, of course, doesn't want that. It relies on its members for its, survival through money and resources and time that the members give. So it's incumbent upon the leaders of the cult and the control structures and people in the cult who run that control that they really monitor closely what information is getting to the cult members and how they deal with that information. So you have the problem in the real world where TV, internet, we live in an information age now. Information is everywhere and it's very easy to access. It wasn't that way when Hubbard first was doing Scientology in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. There was no internet. There was no easy access to information like there is now. You'd have to go make a trip to the library or, go talk to people or go do things. You couldn't do it all from your home, right? Where we just have so much information available to us now. So it would take a more dedicated effort. So here's how this works, right? Is because they live in this bubble world of, must not, allow certain information to come in, Scientologists actually learn as part of their indoctrination to do their own information control, because you can't have, Big Brother watching you 24/7. I mean, very few people would allow that level of control. So instead, what the leaders and control members of destructive cults learn is to get the members to police themselves. And so what they do is they learn to, shut out people trying to give them information that is counter to or, somewhat against what the information is that they're being fed by the cult. So it's not so much a matter of, the member will have, somebody will come in and they're Facebook friends with somebody who's an SP. Well, the guy's not necessarily going to know that, and so it might not ever affect him, because if this person doesn't say to the cult member, look, you're part of a destructive cult and I disagree with that and Scientology's crazy, if they don't say that, then the cult member would never know who this person is or what his connections or associations are or that sort of thing. So it might not, be an issue at all. If it becomes an issue, then the cult member knows to, start going into the information control mode, where he goes, well, look, we're not going to talk about that. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear anything negative about Scientology. And if it's a chiropractor or a doctor or something, and his is a patient of his, well, that's a very easy relationship for the doctor to control. The doctor doesn't need to get into his personal life with his patients or his customers or something like that. If it's a business owner or that sort of thing, it's really none of their business one way or the other. So it's fairly easy to control those relationships because it's just, a matter of social dictate that, people can, have their own religion or have their own ideas about things. And you don't really care about that if you're just trying to get some doctor care or, buy dog food from the guy or something like that, right? But if the customer or the person insists on putting forward, anti-Scientology statements or something to this Scientologist, then the Scientologist will begin to feel that he needs to have this person not be connected to him or have him out of his life. And so really, it kind of depends a lot on how much the non-Scientologist is saying and doing, and the Scientologist's idea or estimation of the relationship. Does the Scientologist feel he really needs this person in his life? If so, he'll try to do a handling on the person. He'll try to get the guy to stop saying those things or stop thinking those things by talking to him about how good Scientology is, telling him how he's had great wins and experiences with it, and that sort of thing. Whereas if it's just, somebody that the Scientologist feels he can blow off and doesn't have to have him in his life or something, then, you're gone. Now, of course, if this is a family member or a close relation or something like that, they might try to do more handlings with the person to get him to, come to, from the Scientologist point of view. He's going to try to get this person to see that Scientology is really this great thing, which of course it's not. And the Scientologist doesn't have the facts on his side. And if he's pressured too much with factual information that he can't argue against, he's going to clam up because that's the only reaction he has left to him. And it's going to be, no, I can't listen to this. And he's going to demand that person get out of his life, right? Because that person threatens, his belief system in Scientology. And of course, Scientology has made it that way, that they've indoctrinated this person into the idea that this is how they have to act. All destructive cults do this, right? So that's basically how it works. So it's not necessarily that Scientology has to put cameras in every, Scientologist's office or home or something. They get the Scientologists to exert their own information control, and that's generally how they control their members.